And great to see everybody who's here. I am Brennan, and I'm hoping, let's see, will you put in the chat if you don't see a slide that says, or tell me you can see the slides that says juniors and family meeting right now. Um, Great, and in the chat, I'm going to put these slides. Here they go. So now you can open those slides for yourself. They've got links in there and what we're going to be talking about tonight. So glad to see all of you. For some of you, it's your first time here. Glad you're here. This is going to be, for those of you who've been here other times, this is our last session in this format for this year anyway. And last year I didn't have these sessions for seniors because everybody was at a different place at a different time. But maybe we'll do that. And, you know, certainly if you ever feel like it would be helpful to have a group Q&A, I'd be very, very glad to do that. So our purpose for tonight, I'd be very, very glad for people to post in the chat anything college related or application related or celebrations, right? This is a time of year when people are having, you know, end of season celebrations or end of year kind of things. Some of us in Seattle Public Schools don't get out for another few weeks, but others are having those end of year celebrations now. So if there are things you'd want to share, I'm seeing some information about visits that people did about colleges. So like if you see somebody who visited a college that you are interested in, I'd be glad for you to keep going in the chat, asking questions, seeing if you can get together with them and hear about what those schools were like. Coming up now is a great time to be visiting. If this is the time you have, I always say with visits, the best time is when you can go. Sure, it would be great to go when there are students on campus, but if you can go when there aren't students on campus, then totally do that. Let's see, let me make sure that I am, yes, okay, I'm hearing. Whoops. So, and if you're reading books that you'd recommend to others, I know I put in the newsletter that went out yesterday that I have a challenge out there that if young people read at least 2 books, more would be awesome, but at least 2 books this summer, and you contact me about them and, you know, chat with me a little bit about them or email with me about them or text with me about them. I'm offering Starbucks gift cards. And always looking for good book recommendations. I'm in a couple of book clubs myself, and it was fun just on a session with a junior earlier today. We were swapping book recommendations, and I really enjoy that. Also, I'll call your attention to the newsletter for the month. I'm trying a new format, and I noticed that the link didn't go directly to the June newsletter. It went to the folder that has all the newsletters in it, which is totally great. I'm glad you're seeing all of those. But the first article in there is about student-led research and different, you know, companies that are doing that. I'm kind of weighing in on different options. This is an article about college list building and the trade-offs of you want this and you want that, but you can't have everything. So, you know, what are you going to focus on? There's a major focus on nutritional sciences, a little acrostic for financing. Then there's some stuff about leaving for college, which is not so much you guys right now. This is all senior things. And then this, though, I wanted to highlight that there is virtual mental health therapy available without a long wait. And so I just wanted to share that with everybody because there's a lot of need and often a long wait list. So there's that information. And then here's a link to the planning timeline. And we're going to be talking about that tonight. So I will go back to our slides. So, yeah, So the things we're going to be talking about tonight are the timeline. We'll spend some time there, and I hope that you will interject with questions when you have them, either in the chat or just unmute and share questions, okay? And then we'll get on a little bit to College List, and we're going to address tonight the application strategy questions, early action, early decision, regular decision, rolling admissions. Then just a little bit about essays. The main essays we talked some about last session. Um, and I just wanted to talk about the parents' role or the family's role with that, and also about the supplemental essays. And then we'll have time for questions and answers, and that typically goes past the 8 o'clock time. If you need to leave at 8 o'clock, no worries. Go as soon as you need to. The recording will be shared, and but those of you who are available to stay, feel free to stay after, and we'll do some, rapid fire questions and answers. All right, so here we are. It is June, and people are wrapping up junior year, and looking forward to summer. And summer will mean a different pacing. And so each of you, I'm hoping, well, I expect, is in touch with me about your summer schedule, and we're figuring out when the college list building, college list presentation, application work is happening. Okay. And so if you haven't already communicated that to me, feel free to private chat me now, and I will save that for later about what you're thinking in that regard. Let's see. So I have another few timeline documents. I put this one on here too, because sometimes people like this left to right horizontal presentation of the timeline. So here we are, we're in essay drafting time. We're in, if you haven't left school yet, it's time to ask your teachers for their willingness to write your letters of recommendation. It's time to get your unofficial transcripts together, make sure everything says what it needs to say. If you're in Seattle Public Schools and you're a junior, make sure that the middle school courses, you either want them on there or you don't want them on there. Now's the time to do that. Now and into the summer, if you're applying to liberal arts colleges, many of them are offering interviews. So that's something you can be working on. And many of you are just finished some testing, or others of you are preparing this summer to spend some time preparing for testing. And others of you are ready to work on the components of the essay, so and the application. And we started a bit on that last time. So if you missed last time, which many people did because it was Mother's Day, feel free to go back to those slides in that recording, or just ask me about it in a meeting and we can do that together. So new for tonight, something you haven't seen before, is a Rising Senior checklist. There's a link in this slide. Let me put the slides again in the chat for those of you who have just joined recently. All right, we are on slide 5, and there's a link there to the Rising Senior checklist. And it looks like this. I'll put that in the chat as well. And it's a 4-page document, which might feel a little bit overwhelming, but I want us all to take a deep collective deep breath. It's really going to be okay. Remember, this is a process that's actually going to be fun. You're actually going to get to know yourself on a whole other level. And for the parents in the room, you're going to see your young person, yes, struggle, maybe feel some stress and overwhelm. But if we can all keep our bodies grounded and our minds grounded, and keep breathing and calm, that this really will be a wonderful process of discovery and challenge, and pushing up against challenges that maybe you haven't had before. It's really going to be good. But here we're leading off with kind of to set the tone of what needs to happen between now and the fall, is that we're shooting for first day of school to be a time when the major components of the application are at least very well drafted. And if that's not possible because of summer plans, we probably have already talked about that. Okay. And then we're wanting to have pretty much final drafts of all essay components coming in to me 2 weeks before the stated deadline of any college application. And I'm asking all of my students to have the applications submitted at least 2 days before the stated deadline of any particular application, because sometimes application portals crash and you just don't want to mess with that. And often deadlines are right around holidays, and it's just better to be early so you can actually enjoy that holiday. Okay, so this document has all sorts of things here, including, yes, the application deadlines, but it just kind of takes you step by step, and it has little check boxes if you want to use that to walk yourself through. Or parents, if you want to, kind of try to be tracking what's happening so that you don't have to bug your kid about like what's next or what's happening. You can reach out to me and be like, hey, I don't really know where my kid's at with this checklist. How are we doing? Happy to discuss that. Okay. All right. So that's a tool. And sort of next up, as I'm thinking about it, for many people, is getting a really solid draft list of where you're thinking you're applying to college. In some cases, we're moving ahead with applications and doing the list concurrently. And that, if you and I have worked that out, that's great. In general, though, the plan is to get a draft college list together, and I'd really like each student to present to their family in a visual way and in a meeting where we can all be there, where you're planning to apply and why each of the schools is on the list, including things like the forecasted cost of attendance at that school for your family based on College Aid Pro, if we've done that. And then key information about why it is that you want to go there. That'll help with your family being on board and supporting you as much as possible for putting together great applications, and for ultimately helping to pay for it if that's what's your situation in your family. And it'll also help you really think through what you want to say about why you want to go to that school. And right now, a year from where you are right now, a few seniors are having the opportunity where they're getting off wait lists and things. And my seniors who did this kind of process of discerning why they wanted to go to a place and had presented that to their family can now go back to this document and say, all right, I got in off the wait list, but I've been really getting excited about the school that accepted me. Do I really want to go to this waitlist school, or do I want to the other? It's a useful document for the short term, but also for the long term. So I'm going to ask you to do that. And if you haven't already set a time with me that you're planning to work on college list stuff, let's get working on that. And I'd be very open to doing a private, you having ideas, like you have a chance to look at your calendar right now. Feel free to private chat me about that. All right, and so after we get the list together and we talk it through and make sure it's a financial fit, social fit, and academic fit list, and it's got a balance of likelihoods of acceptance, and you've got on there some rolling decision schools and some local schools, some smaller schools, some bigger schools. Got a good balanced list. Then it's an opportunity to make some decisions about how you're going to be applying to a school. What's your timeline strategy? And so I thought it'd be helpful to review the different decision deadlines that you can apply for. So ED stands for early decision, that's down here. EA stands for early action down here. RD stands for regular decision down here. And then there's rolling. So I'll start at the top. Rolling admissions, you can submit anytime and you hear back typically within the month or two. Some favorites of mine are Western Washington University. Even though they have a few deadlines to hit, they're technically rolling. Sometimes kids hear back in days, sometimes it is more like a month. University of Arizona, which has outstanding merit scholarships and a really very strong honors college. and excellent programs in computer science and architecture, all those things. Anyway, they are rolling admissions. I've got long lists of rolling admission schools on the Schooling Doula links to shared student resources folder. So if you're looking for some rolling admission schools, just reach out. Those are all actually, like most of the European schools, not all, but many of them, like the Scotland schools, are rolling admissions. And in all of those cases, it pays with those schools to apply earlier, so because they're basically open till full, and you'll get more scholarships and more opportunities the earlier you apply. And then many of you who are working with me now, you have this great opportunity to think through whether early decision is a move you'd like to make. Early decision is when you apply, typically by November 1st or November 15th for a few schools, and you'll hear back by mid-December. But it's a binding application decision, and so you have to sign to say that you'll go if you apply that way. And the reason that people think of doing that is one, for front loading the work and hearing back early, and because in some cases it appears that there is quite a bit of advantage statistically in acceptance rates for applying early decision. I want to dispel that a bit, because I've repeatedly talked to college admissions folks who say that probably if you took out all of the legacy admissions and all of the athletes who are being recruited, the selectivity of early decision is actually quite comparable to regular decision. That said, for someone who is very clear that they would like a particular school and they would go to that school over every other, there is no downside of applying to early decision, because you want to go there. If you are not a family who wants to pay full price for a particular school, then sometimes people decide not to apply early decision because they aren't sure that they would be able to pay the amount requested of them. In that case, if that's your situation, hopefully we're already talking about that. But if we haven't already talked about that, let's have that conversation. Okay, so this will be part for sure of that. When your student presents to you about where they're going to apply, we will have that conversation about whether to apply early decision or not. Early action is a benefit in most cases to most people. It's really just gives you an opportunity to apply early. You hear back earlier than you would if you applied regular decision. You indicate some demonstrated interest to the college, and but it's not binding. And then regular decision is not a bad way to go in general, but for certain schools, it is much more difficult to get in regular decision. So we should just talk about that. But many schools don't have all these different decision dates. And some examples of those are University of Washington, University of California, California State Universities like Cal Poly and San Diego State. They don't have any other. Gonzaga also just has one deadline, and it's regular decision, but it actually comes early in most of those cases in November and December. But others have regular decision deadlines between January and March. And and many of those rolling admissions schools keep accepting applications after March. So there can just be these waves of work on applications and applying. But in every case, there is a commitment day of May 1st for everyone. I guess not every case, for everybody but early decision. Okay, all of these other deadlines, you have to commit by May 1st of senior year. So your particular instance of what you're going to do and what your strategy is going to be influenced by finances and plans and timing. And also, though, we will look at information like this. There's a link in the previous slide to this data set that my friends and colleagues, Jenny Kent and Jeff Levy, put together. Just shows you a little bit about how how different the results can be between early decision and regular decision at some schools. So this is just the beginning of the alphabet in the spreadsheet that they make. And you can see that like Allegheny, which is a school in Pennsylvania, has an early decision rate of 56% and a regular decision rate of 76%. So in that case, they only admit 20% of their class through regular decision and a much higher percentage through regular decision. And I can talk with you about why that is, but you can see the opposite at American, that American has an 87% acceptance rate for early decision and a 63% acceptance rate for regular decision. This is actually a couple of years ago. So this past year's acceptance rate for American was 40-ish%, and their EA decision rate, you see, isn't broken out here. So it's very difficult. EA is not something that colleges are required to put out information data about, and so only the exceptional school will put out that information. Anyway, you can see the range of difference, but the thing that's quite interesting is the column that says ED to RD acceptance ratio, and that is, like in the case of Amherst, there's a 3-to-1 ratio or benefit to applying early decision, but now they have a high number of recruited athletes that come in through that round, as well as legacies would come in there, and also QuestBridge and other programs that are for students with high financial need are basically recruited as well, and they come in then. So Barnard has a 4-to-1 ratio. So, but then like this, Augustana has just a 1-to-1, and Allegheny has the actual benefit to regular decision. So happy to talk through that more. Okay, so most of you, yeah, everybody has the opportunity to do a college Kickstart report, and this will help with this strategy. And your finances and my knowledge of you and your situation will be paramount. But this is a data-based program that I use called College Kickstart, which will take your list and your top priority schools and then make some suggestions based on the college's common data set and who they admitted the previous year and what the strategy might be for early decision, early action, regular decision applications. Okay, so then we'll head into essays, and we won't go into this in detail tonight, but I just wanted to say again, the big idea of the college essays is to add to that puzzle pieces of you that we've talked about, the application being all the components of the grades and classes that you've taken, any tests you've taken, your activities lists, and then you have this opportunity to basically do a written interview about who you are, what you value, what your interests are, what your insights are, and it really needs to be in the student's authentic voice. And there are multiple essays in most cases. There's the one personal statement, and this is the link to the work that we'll do and a timeline, and you can think about when you're going to do that. And we're going to use the WOW Writing Workshop portal. And then there are also supplemental essays, or in the case of the University of California, the personal insight questions. And I will say that for parents, we hear all about the singular essay, but actually what I've been hearing from admissions officers over the last few years is that the supplemental essays have become in some ways more important, because that's where we really see the young person, because the personal statement has gotten so much work and polish that if they see that there's a difference between what they say in the supplemental essays and what is in the personal statement, they're like, who is this person, right? So we want to have consistency. And the supplemental essays is when colleges get to ask their own questions. Why do you want us? How much do you know about us? Are you a good fit for us? Are we a good fit for you? And so the care that you put into the supplemental essays should be as much as much as you put into the personal statement or the personal insight questions. And some, as you see on the screens, we can work anytime now, even though the supplemental essays don't get announced until August. In most cases, they're going to fall into these buckets. Like, why do you want to come to us? Why do you want to major in what you want to major in? Expand on an extracurricular activity. Tell us about your community and how you're going to contribute to our community. Those are kind of the big, we call them super essays, and we're going to work on those. So how are we going to work on those? Where do we find out about those? So after you've made your college list, you're going to have put a green heart on each of your colleges that you want to apply to in Council More, and then they'll go to the app tracker. And in the app tracker is where it'll show information about the deadlines, about the essays, about the supplemental essays. And when we've got a set plan, we're going to download an Excel spreadsheet of those things and make some summary statements about what the supplements are for each school. And so this is an example of something from a student from last year. We have their schools on the left and then the supplements here on the right, and personal statement and PSPS, that means personal statement from the Common App. And then there was a community essay for both of these schools and also further down below. And so we coded the community essay red. He didn't actually have any other why us essays, and so we didn't end up coding that a particular way. But whenever we have overlap, then we code it the same color, and then we know, all right, we're going to share essay work across those schools. So make a plan like that, and that'll be in the files folder on Council More or in our shared folder in our shared Google Drive. And so the big idea for the families in the room, the parents in the room, is that yes, the writing is important, but actually the truth is that for the highly selectives, yes, it's your chance to share who you are. But for most schools, I'm going to say, like, really seriously, 90% of schools, the essay is important. It's not more important than the teacher recommendations, than the courses you've taken, than your activities list. They look at it for a little bit and then they move on. And so it's okay to keep it light and trust that these essays really do need to reflect your student's voice, and that word choice and grammar conventions have changed, since we were in school. And so as much as possible, we want to sit on our hands and just be like, yay, you're doing great. I'm going to just tell one story in the minute here. I had a student in my first year who was applying, had great stats and was applying to super highly selectives. And in their personal statement, they used a word that they didn't know already before they did the essay, and they put it in the first paragraph. And they got this idea for this word from a reader that the parents trusted in addition to me. And when I said, hey, did you already know that word? He said, no, but it's the perfect word for what I'm trying to say. And I said, sure. I'm just a little worried that since it's in your first paragraph and you don't have any other vocabulary like that throughout any of your writing in your application, that it might be a red flag to them that you've had essay help. And he said, well, I really love it. I'm going to go with it. I have no idea why he didn't get into the highly selectives. He got into a lot of amazing schools and he's doing really, really great. But I have always wondered since then if it was the atavistic in the first paragraph. Some kids already know those words, right? So if you're that kid and it's your vocabulary, go for it. But we parents, we essay reviewers, it's our job not to write it for them, not to give the kind of advice that you would give if you were a co-author. We're not co-authors, okay? We're trying to support the student being the author of their own story. And I think that you will have way more success, students, if you write with your own voice, just as if you were talking in an interview to the person from the college. Um, I will say that some college advisors, essay advisors, ask the parents not to be involved at all. I don't think that's natural, right? Um, so if you have ideas, parents, about things that you think could be great for that your young person to include in their essay, I invite you to share that with me. Maybe that's safer. Share it with your student if they ask for it. But parents often do have ideas. I'll say that sometimes we have ideas about like the way you used to be when you were small and now you're this way, and I see you growing and changing this way. And sometimes the stories of how kids were when they were small can come in a small way, but the essay generally wants folks want it to be present or just pretty recent. So about like, who are you as you come to college? What is important to you as you come to college now? And then finally, in this last minute here, I'd really appreciate it if families out or anybody outside of the student didn't does not please edit heavily, because conventions have changed about commas, um, dashes, all sorts of things, and it really needs to seem like the young person. It needs to be the young person, not just seem like. And it's really tempting. I know as a parent myself, I was, worried that it wouldn't be good enough. So I wanted to have like my mom, the English professor, read it and all of that. And it's great to have them read it afterwards. And if you really want them to be involved in the during process, okay, let's talk about it. It's possible that I'll step out of anything but a kind of, supervisor, like, final check kind of role, if needed. Yeah, I can't manage like too many cooks in the kitchen. And honestly, it's really not about me, it's about the young person. Last year, I had a kid who just wanted to shop it to everybody they could. They had gotten that advice, and that was really difficult for him. He went around and around and around and just never felt like it was good enough. He got into great schools, it's all going to be fine, but it was really stressful. So, as much as we can let the young person drive and trust them and just keep affirming, it needs to be your voice. You have a great voice. Just tell it who you are. Um, and then, we're in the era of Chat GPT, and colleges are all working on that. So I would just advise to stay as far away from using AI or Chat GPT for your writing, just the same way you wouldn't have a virtual responder go to an interview. Do the interview yourself. Get the job yourself. Okay. Okay, that is my monologue. And what questions do people have? If you need to go, I certainly understand. Let's hear from you. I will stop recording, or I'll pause. Here we go.